Distinguished shareholders, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the 4th Annual General Meeting of VFD Group Plc. The time now is 11 a.m. The Company Secretary has informed me that a quorum has been formed. The registrars haven't received 28 number of proxies representing 99,287,124 number of shares. Therefore, I have great pleasure in declaring this meeting open. Please be advised that this meeting is being streamed live and also being recorded. May I call on Mr. John Okonkwo to say the opening prayer. Can you unmute Mr. Okonkwo, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, distinguished shareholders. May we pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Mighty God, we thank you for a day like this. We thank you for the opportunity to be alive at a time like this. We thank you for bringing us to this meeting. We thank you for the company, for its directors and its workers and its shareholders. Thank you for the opportunity to hold this first virtual AGM of the company. We pray as we are about to commence this meeting, you will be with us, direct our affairs, and make everything flow very well. We also invoke your blessings upon the company that it should continue to grow from strength to strength. Direct its directors and shareholders and workers to do the right thing to move the company forward at all times. These and others we pray through Christ our Lord. Amen. For the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Mr. Okonkwo. Due to the outbreak of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria, your company decided to hold an AGM by proxy. In line with the guidelines of the Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, having obtained the Commission's approval. However, owing to the rising number of reported cases of the COVID-19 and movement restrictions in Lagos State, the board decided to hold the AGM virtually, and the Corporate Affairs Commission was duly notified. I welcome you to the first virtual AGM meeting of VFD Group. I wish to use this opportunity to express our appreciation to the health workers who have been in the front line tackling the COVID-19 pandemic and the government for the constructive actions that have been taken. We should all endeavor to keep safe and adhere to all stipulated guidelines. Having said this, it gives me great pleasure to introduce myself and those participating with me at this AGM. I'll start with the introduction of the members of the Board of Directors of the company. At this meeting is the Group Managing Director, CEO of your company, Mr. Nonso Okpala. Mr. Okpala. Also at this meeting.
Good day, distinguished shareholders. We're delighted to host you at this virtual AGM.
Thank you very much, Nonso. Also at this meeting, we have other members of the Board of Directors, and namely Dr. Samuel Maduka Onyushi.
Good morning, everyone. You're welcome.
Mrs. Ngozi Aganya. Mrs. Ngozi Aganya, also a director of your company. Mr. Victor Fagbamila.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr. Victor Fagbamila.
Good morning.
Mr. Sulaiman Lawal. I spotted Alaji earlier. Is Mr. Lawal also on this platform? Mrs. Joel Okwechime.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning, Joel. Mr. Ayodele Onowumi.
Good morning, Chairman, and you're welcome to the meeting.
Good morning, Mr. Naomi. Mr. Chooks Ozigbo.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the meeting, everybody.
Morning, Mr. Ozigbo. Mr. Mobolaji Adeomi.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, distinguished shareholders.
Thank you very much. Mr. Niyi Adenubi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished shareholders, it's a pleasure to have you at our first virtual AGM. Good morning.
Mr. Gbenga Omolokun.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everybody.
And Mr. Azubike Emode.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, our distinguished shareholders. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. And also here is our indefatigable company secretary, Ms. Bemini Shoda.
Good morning, distinguished shareholders.
Thank you very much. And my name is Tunde Busari, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. I'm the chairman of VFD Group. We have with us representatives of the following regulators. For the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC is being represented by Mr. Taiwo Odusanya. Mr. Odusanya, Mr. Taiwo Odusanya. The NASD is being represented, just a moment. The NASD PLC is being represented by Mrs. Veronica Odumosu.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, distinguished shareholders.
Thank you very much. And the Corporate Affairs Commission, even though has no representation, they had earlier notified us in response to our invitation to this meeting that due to the lockdown, they will not be able to send a representative. I would like also to introduce to you representatives of the following: the external auditors, Atakov Services Limited, represented by Mrs. Dakpo Ajay Gumo.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and distinguished shareholders.
Good morning, Mrs. Ajay Gumo. The registrar, Africa Prudential PLC, represented by Mrs. Catherine Nwosu.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, distinguished shareholders.
Morning, Mrs. Nwosu. The Statutory Audit Committee, represented by the chairman, Mr. John Okonkwo.
Good morning once again, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, distinguished shareholders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okonkwo. The Board Evaluation Consultant, Angela Aneke and Co. Limited, represented by Ms. Uju Ibekwe.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning. Please be reminded that the meeting is being streamed live and recorded. When you want to speak, please indicate by show of hand and wait for me to invite you to speak. When invited, your microphone will be unmuted and muted after speaking. Please state your name clearly and endeavor to be brief and straight to the point. I urge you not to repeat what has been said. Kindly also note that the register of directors, shareholding, and the record of attendance of board meetings of directors eligible for election are available for viewing by contacting the registrars. Please also note the requisite information is available in the annual report. I will now call on the company secretary, Mrs. Bemini Shoda, to read the notice of meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. Notice of the 4th Annual General Meeting. Notice is hereby given that the 4th Annual General Meeting of VFD Group Plc, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, will be held at Forsyth House, 163-165 Broad Street, Lagos Island, on Friday, 15th of May, 2020 at 11 a.m. to transact the following business. Ordinary business. Number 1, to lay before the company in general meeting the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2019, together with the reports of the directors, auditors, and the audit committee thereon. Number 2, to declare a dividend. Number 3, to approve the appointment of Mr. Chukwusi Ozigbo as a director. 4, to re-elect the following directors retiring by rotation: Mr. Suleiman Lawal, Mr. Latunde Busari, SAN, Mr. Azubike Mordi, Dr. Samuel Madukainshi, and Ms. Joy Okwechime. Number 5, to appoint the firm of Deloitte as auditor of the company in accordance with Section 357, Sub 1 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004. Number 6, to authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditor. 7, to elect and re-elect members of the audit committee in accordance with Section 394, Sub 4 and 5 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, dated 20th April 2020, by order of the board, signed Bemini Ishoda, Company Secretary.
Thank you very much, Bemi. Distinguished shareholders, the chairman's statement is at page 14 of the annual report, copies of which have been distributed to shareholders and is also available on the company's website. With the kind permission of the shareholders and the directors, I crave your indulgence to deem these reports as read. Do I have your confirmation that my report is deemed as read?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
And I'll
Chairman.
call, thank you very much. I now call upon the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Nonso Opala, to read his report. Mr. Opala.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Distinguished shareholders, the GMD's report is on page 19 to page 25 of the annual report, copies of which has been distributed to shareholders and are also available on the company's website. Can you permit me to waive my reading of the statement? Please consider it as read.
Taken as read.
Taken as read, Mr. Opala.
Thank you very
Taken as
much.
read.
Taken as read. Taken as read.
Taken as read.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Distinguished shareholders, I will now ask the representative of the external auditor, the external auditors, to read the auditor's reports. Mrs. Dapo Ajegumo.
Thank you. Thank you. The chairman, other directors, distinguished shareholders, the independent auditor's reports are on pages 54 to 57 of the VFD annual reports and accounts for the year ended 31 December 2009. I would like to obtain permission of the board and the shareholders to read only the abridged version of this report.
Granted. Go ahead, Mrs. Ajegumo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Opinion on the reports. We have audited the consolidated and separate financial statements of VFD Group PLC and its subsidiaries. These consolidated and separate financial statements comprise the consolidated and separate statement of financial position as at 31 December 2019, the consolidated and separate statement of profit and loss and other comprehensive income, consolidated and separate statement of changes in equity, consolidated and separate statement of cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the consolidated and separate financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated and separate financial statements give a true and fair view of the consolidated and separate financial statement positions, of VFD Group PLC as at 31 December 2019, and of its consolidated and separate financial performance and consolidated and separate cash flows for the year then ended in accordance to the International Financial Reporting Standards, the requirements of Companies and Allied Matters Act, the Financial Reporting of Nigeria Act, and the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act of Nigeria, and the relevant Central Bank of Nigeria guidelines and circulars. Basis of our opinion, we conducted our audits in accordance with international standards on auditing. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statement section of our reports. We are independent of the group in accordance with the International Ethics Standard Board for Accountants Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, together with the ethical requirements that are relevant to the audit of the financial statement in Nigeria. And we have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with these requirements and the IASBA code. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate for an opinion. Reports and other legal and regulatory requirements. In accordance with the requirements of Schedule 6 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, we confirm that, in our opinion, proper books of accounts have been kept by the group and its subsidiaries, so far as appears from our examination of those books. The consolidated and separate statement of financial position and consolidated separate statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income are in compliance with Section 27, subsection 2 of the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act of Nigeria and Central Bank of Nigeria, Circular 850/1/2004. The group and its subsidiaries did not pay any penalty in respect of contraventions of the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act of Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria during the year ended 31 December 2019. Related party transactions and balances are disclosed in Note 38 to the financial statement in compliance with the Central Bank of Nigeria Circular BSD/1/2004. Signed, Dr. Olubenga Odeyemi, FCA ACTI, for Atakov Services. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ajegumo. I will now ask the chairman of the Statutory Audit Committee to read the committee's report, Mr. John Okonkwo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished shareholders, this is the report of the Audit Committee to the members of VFD Group PLC. This report can be found on page 53 of the annual reports, which has been circulated widely. In accordance with the provision of Section 359, subsection 6 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, Cap C20, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, the members of the Audit Committee of VFD Group PLC hereby report on the financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2019 as follows. We have exercised our statutory functions under Section 359, subsection 6 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, Cap C20, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and acknowledge the cooperation of management staff in the conduct of these responsibilities. we are of the opinion that the accounting and reporting policies of the company are in accordance with legal requirements and the agreed ethical practices, and that the scope and planning of both the external and internal audits for the year ended 31 December 2019 were satisfactory and reinforced group's internal control systems. We have deliberated with the external auditors who have confirmed that necessary cooperation was received from management in the course of their statutory audit, and we are satisfied with management's responses thereon and with the effectiveness of the group's system of accounting and internal control. The members of the audit committee are myself, Mr. John Okonkwo as chairman, Mr. Victor Fabamea as a member, and Mr. Emi Lawal, also a member. The company secretary serves as the secretary to the committee. Signed by Mr. John Okonkwo, chairman of the audit committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okonkwo. Distinguished shareholders, please take note of the report of the external consultant on the board evaluation of the company at page 51 of the annual report. Pursuant to section 224 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, I hereby declare that a poll be taken on all resolutions for consideration at this meeting, except the resolution for the election of members of the Statutory Audit Committee, which shall be by show of hands. Shareholders that did not send in their proxy form have the opportunity to vote at this meeting by using the chat icon. And I'll repeat that shareholders that did not send in their proxy form can vote at this meeting by using the chat icon. Once a resolution is put to vote, kindly put in your vote using the chat box by stating whether you are voting for, voting against, or whether you are abstaining from the resolution. Since this is an AGM by proxy, and the voters on all the proxy forms are duly submitted are being collated by the registrars, I will ask the registrars to collate the voting results, including the votes on the proxy forms and the outcome of the votes done here after conclusion of the voting process on each resolution upon their introduction for consideration. The next item is to lay before you the 219 reports and audited financial statements as at December 31st, 2019. I believe we all have copies of this financial statement and report as at December 31, 2019. You now have an opportunity to ask questions regarding the report and financial statements. In doing so, it will help to ensure that we give the right answer if you could refer to the page of the report and financial statements to which your question relates. Remember to raise your hands to enable the chairman to enable me recognize you and allow you to speak. The CEO and Managing Director, Mr. Nonso Okpala, and I will be pleased to answer any question which you may have on the report and financial statements before we proceed. Now I invite any shareholder that has with any question on these reports and financial statements to ask such questions, and we'll be willing to respond to same. May I call on Mr. Coker? Is Mr. Coker at this meeting? Any questions, please?
For now.
Mr. Christopher Coker.
No questions for now. Christopher Coker speaking.
Thank you very much. May I invite Mr. Yinka Dedeji if he's in attendance?
Yeah, no questions, sir.
This is Yinka Adedeji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
May I invite Ms. Obianuju Abba? Ms. Obianuju Abba, is she at this meeting? Good morning, Obianuju.
I'm sorry, it's time for now. Thank you very much.
No questions, sir. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes.
Mr. Kelvin. Mr. Kelvin Orogun. Is Mr. Kelvin Orogun in this meeting? Mr. Adeoye Fadeyibi. Thank you very much. In the absence of questions from the shareholders, I hereby move that the audited financial statement for the year ended December 31st, 2019, together with the report of directors and auditors thereon submitted to this meeting, be and are hereby received, adopted, and approved. Will someone please second the motion?
I second, sir. Yinka Adedeji.
Mr. Yinka Adedeji seconds. Thank you very much. I now put the motion. Did I hear somebody else? Somebody wanted to also add his voice to second. Thank you. I now put the motion to the meeting. Share, but remember the earlier instructions so that the voting can be seamless and transparent.
Yes, that was Mr. Suleiman Lawal.
Mr. Suleiman Lawal will have you on record as also having supported that motion. I will go over the voting instruction again to make this voting exercise seamless and smooth. Shareholders that did not send their proxy should kindly proceed to put in their vote using the chat box by stating whether they are for, against, or they are abstaining. So all you need to do is just type in for, or type against, or type abstain from the resolution. Voting will be for 1 minute, while we'll give the registrar 2 minutes to collate and announce the results. The chat box is now open, and I invite the shareholders to proceed to vote for, against, or to abstain. Oh, this is impressive. I'm happy to see that we're all ICT compliant. Almost everybody on this platform, I observe, they've all cast their votes. And the voting for Resolution 1 has been declared closed now after the period given, after the time allotted for voting. May I invite the registrar, Mrs. Catherine Nwosu, to collate and announce the results of the poll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress.
Thank you very much.
For the purpose of this meeting, we received 28 proxies with a total of 99,287,124 units of shares representing 83.27% of the issued share capital of VFD Group Plc. Also at this meeting are 17 shareholders with a total of 6,263,065 units of shares, representing 5.25% of the issued share capital of the company. Cumulatively, we have 45 shareholders and proxy with a total of 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 88.52% of the issued share capital of VFD Group Plc. For the resolution to lay the financial statement, the result of the poll is as follows: 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Catherine Wosu, for that comprehensive analysis and declaration of results. I hereby declare the motion as duly carried. Thank you very much, my esteemed shareholders. The next item on the agenda is the declaration of dividend. For the financial year ended 31st December 2019, the directors are recommending a dividend of 3 naira 30 kobo for every ordinary share of 50 kobo each to all shareholders whose names are in the company's register of register of members as at 1st May 2020. I hereby move that a dividend of 3 naira 30 kobo for every ordinary share of 50 kobo each be paid to shareholders whose names appear in the company's register of members as at the close of business on the 1st of May 2020. Will someone please second the motion?
Joel Okwechime, I second.
Joel Okwechime seconds the motion.
Coker.
Thank you. Chris Coker also seconds the motion. Thank you.
Chris
very
Coker
much.
also seconded.
I now put the motion to the meeting. Shareholders, and I will go over the voting instruction again for clarity and then to make for fairness. Shareholders that did not send in their proxy forms should kindly proceed to put in their vote using the chat box by stating whether they are for, against, or whether they are abstaining from the vote from the resolution. Voting will be for 1 minute, while we'll give the registrar 2 minutes to collate and announce the results. The voting starts now. Voting for resolution 2 ends, and I invite the registrar to kindly collate and announce the results of the poll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the declaration of dividend, the result of the poll is as follows: 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by both proxies and shareholders, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Nwosu, you should be sure that none of us will vote against declaration of dividend. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is to approve the appointment of Mr. Chuks Ozigbo as the director of the company. Section 248, subsection 1 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act gives shareholders power to re-elect, reject, and appoint new directors. I hereby move that Mr. Chuks Ozigbo be and is hereby appointed as the director of your company. Will someone please second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I second the motion.
Mr. Niyi Adenubi seconds the motion. I now put the motion to the meeting. And again, I will request that shareholders that did not send in their proxy forms should kindly proceed to the chat box to cast their votes for, against, or to abstain from this resolution. Voting is for 1 minute, and the registrar will have 2 minutes to collate.
I second the motion, Suleiman Lawal.
Okay. Alaji Lawal seconds the motion. Voting is in session now, please. Can we proceed to... Even though Mr. Karim Abba spelled 4 as FIR, but we will count it as 4. Voting for resolution 3 has just ended. May I invite the registrar, Mrs. Catherine Nwosu, to collate and announce the results.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress. For the resolution to approve the appointment of Mr. Chuks Ozigbo as the director of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nwosu. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Congratulations, Mr. Chuks Ozigbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The next item on the agenda is the re-election of directors. In accordance with Section 259, subsection 1 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, at the annual general meeting in every subsequent year, 1/3 of the directors for the time being shall retire from office and be eligible for re-election. The directors retiring by rotation and who being eligible have presented themselves for re-election are my humble self, Mr. Olatunde Busari SN, Mr. Sulaiman Lawal, Mr. Azubike Emodi, Mr. Samuel Maduka Onyishi, and Ms. Joel Okwechime. Since voting is by poll, re-election of directors have to be taken individually, and that is the process that we intend to follow. I will now hand over this part of the proceedings to the Group Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Nonso Opala, since I'm involved in this re-election exercise. Mr. Nonso Opala.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, distinguished shareholders, thank you very much. I hereby move that Mr. Olatunde Busari-San, who is retiring by rotation and has offered himself for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected. Would someone please second the motion?
I second the motion. I second the motion.
I second the motion. Suleiman Law.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suleiman. I now put the motion to the meeting. Shareholders that did not send in their proxy forms should kindly proceed to put their votes using the chat box by stating whether you are for, against, or abstain from the resolution. Voting will 2 minutes to collate and announce the results. Mosu, please proceed.
Thank you, sir. Voting is in progress. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Voting has ended. Collation is in progress.
Thank you. Wait.
For the re-election of Mr. Olatunde Busari SAN as a director of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Catherine. I have the singular honor of congratulating my chairman, and at this point, I would hand over the proceedings to him. Mr. Chairman, you're welcome, and congrats again.
Thank you very much, MDCU, Mr. Nonso. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, sir.
Okay.
Can hear you, Mr. Chairman.
I can hear you very well, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I thought I had been.
So
congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations.
For a moment, I thought I'd been evicted from the house.
No, sir.
Thank you very much, MDCO, Mr. Nonso Okpara. Thank you very much, Mrs. Nwosu, for the job that you are doing. You see, it's the new normal now is. I reckon we are getting used to it gradually. To think that an AGM is going on seamlessly and we are conducting elections and voting and announcements are being made under minutes means that we have really decided that life must go on and we cannot kill commerce and stop living because of the pandemic. But our prayer is still that all of us together with our families will be saved and protected through this challenging period. That said, I also want to thank the shareholders for their vote of confidence in me and for casting their votes to elect me back on the board of directors of VFD Group. I'm grateful, and I do not intend to betray the trust that you have reposed in me. Thank you very much once again. I hereby move. I'll now proceed to the next resolution, and that will be for the rest of the retiring members' re-election of the rest of the retiring members of the directors, starting with Mr. Sulaiman Lawal. I hereby move that Mr. Sulaiman Lawal, who is retiring by rotation and has offered himself for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected. Will someone please second this motion?
I second the motion.
I second the motion.
Benga Omolokun and Chuks Ozigbo, second. I now put the motion to the meeting. Shareholders that did not send in their proxy should please proceed to the chat box and state whether they are voting for, against, or they are abstaining. We'll give 1 minute for the voting exercise, and I'll hand over to the registrar thereafter. I'm informed that voting, voting for resolution 5 has ended. I invite Mrs. Nwosu to please collate and announce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress.
Thank you very much.
For the re-election of Mr. Sulaiman Lawal, the result of the poll is as follows. 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy, voted in favor of his re-election. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Nwosu. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried, and I also congratulate Mr. Sulaiman Lawal on his reappointment into the board of directors of VFD Group.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all shareholders.
Thank you very much. I move to the next motion. I hereby move that Mr. Azubike Emodi, who is retiring by rotation and has offered himself for election, be and is hereby re-elected. Will someone please second this motion?
Bolaji Adeobi. I second the motion.
Zubi, you have about 4 people seconding your motion. I now put the motion to the meeting. Shareholders that did not send in their proxy forms should please proceed to the chat box to vote for, against, or to abstain. The voting for resolution 6 just has been has ended. I now invite Mrs. Nwosu to collate and announce the result.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress. For the re-election of Mr. Azubike Emodi as a director of the company, the result of the poll is as follows. 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxy, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nwosu. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried, and I also congratulate Mr. Zubike Emodi on his re-election onto the board of VFD Group. Congrats, Zubi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much to our distinguished shareholders.
Thank you very much. I hereby move that Dr. Samuel Maduka Onyishi, who is retiring by rotation and has offered himself for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected. Will someone please second the motion?
Bola Jadeomi, I second the motion.
Bola Jadeomi seconds the motion. I now put the motion to the meeting, and I request that shareholders that did not send in their proxy forms should proceed to put in their votes in the chat box for, against, or to abstain. The exercise will be open for 1 minute. Voting has ended. I invite Mrs. Nwosu to please collate and announce the results.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress. For the re-election of Dr. Samuel Maduka Onishi, the result of the election is as follows: 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nwosu. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried, and also congratulate our own Dr. Samuel Maduka Onyeshi on his re-election onto the board of directors of VFD Group. Congratulations, Dr. Onyeshi.
I can modify this one. Oh, God.
I now move to the motion for the re-election of Ms. Joel Okwechime. I move that Mrs. Joel Okwechime, who is retiring by rotation and has offered herself for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected. Will someone please second this motion?
But you will see that there is against.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Niyi Adenubi, seconding the motion.
Niyi Adenubi seconds the motion. I now put the motion to the meeting, and I request that shareholders that did not send in their proxy forms should proceed to the chat box to vote for, against, or to abstain. We have 1 minute for this resolution. Voting for resolution 8 ends. Mrs. Nwosu, can you please collate and announce?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress. For the re-election of Ms. Joel Okwechime, the result of the poll is as follows: 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nwosu. I hereby declare that motion has been duly carried, and I congratulate Ms. Joel Okwechime on her re-election onto the board of VFD Group. Congratulations, Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, shareholders. I feel honored to be re-elected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of Deloitte and Touche as external auditors of the company. The board thus proposes that the shareholders approve the appointment of Deloitte and Touche as external auditors of the company. I hereby move that the appointment of Deloitte and Touche be and is hereby approved as the external auditors of the company. Will someone please second this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nia Denubi again, seconding the motion.
I now put the motion to the meeting and request that shareholders that did not file their proxy forms should proceed to the chat box to vote for, against, or to abstain. We have 1 minute for this exercise. The resolution voting just ends, and I invite Mrs. Nwosu to please collate and announce the results.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collection in progress. For the resolution to appoint the firm of Messrs. Deloitte as auditors of the company, the result of the poll is as follows: 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nwosu. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. The next item on the agenda is to authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the external auditors, Deloitte and Touche. The law, particularly Section 361 of the company, subsection 1 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, requires that their remuneration be fixed by the company in a general meeting, or in such a manner as the company may determine in the general meeting. I hereby move that the directors be and are hereby authorized to fix the remuneration of the external auditors for the year ending 31st December 2020. Will someone please second this motion? Thank you very much. Joel Okwechime seconds the motion. I now put the motion to the meeting and request that shareholders that didn't send in their proxy forms should proceed to the chat box to vote for, against, or to abstain from this resolution. We have 1 minute for this exercise. Voting for Resolution 10 has ended. Mrs. Nwosu, can you please collate and announce the results?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Collation in progress. For the resolution to authorize the directors to fix the remuneration of the auditors for the 2020 financial year, the result of the poll is as follows. 105,550,189 units of shares, representing 100% of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies, voted in favor of the resolution. None of the votes cast by shareholders and proxies voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I hereby declare that motion has been duly carried. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the election of members of the Statutory Audit Committee. The directors nominated to represent the board on the Statutory Audit Committee are Mr. Victor Fagbamila, a non-executive director, and Mr. Chuks Ozego, a non-executive director. The company secretary has confirmed that a total of 2 valid nominations were received for membership of the audit committee from the shareholders. The following members have been validly nominated to represent shareholders on the audit committee: Mr. John Okonkwo, a shareholder, and Mr. Adeyemi Lawal, also a shareholder. Since the 2 shareholders nominees are unopposed, I hereby move that the following persons have been validly elected as members of the audit committee: Mr. John Okonkwo, the shareholder; Mr. Adeyemi Lawal, shareholder; Mr. Victor Fagbamila, non-executive director; and Mr. Chuks Ozego, a non-executive director. I now put the motion to the meeting. Those in favor of this motion who did not send in their proxy forms should kindly proceed to put in their votes using the chat box by stating whether they are for, against, or they are abstaining. Voting will be for 1 minute before I invite the registrar to declare the results. We have 1 minute for this exercise. Voting has ended, and I invite Mrs. Nwosu to please collate and announce the results.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Counting in progress. For the resolution to elect members of the Statutory Audit Committee, the result of the election conducted by show of hands is as follows. 28 proxies and 17 shareholders participated in the election, and all voted in favor of the election of the committee members. No shareholder or proxy voted against the resolution, and there is no abstention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Nwosu. I hereby declare that the motion has been duly carried. Any other business? As this is an AGM, and as there is no other business on the agenda, I thank you on behalf of the Board of Directors of your company, VFD Group PLC, for attending this meeting, being the first virtual meeting of the company. And I also commend you for showing so much interest in your company's affairs. And I looked through the list of the participants, and I think it is commendable that we have this number of attendants, both from within and abroad. And as experience is showing, it looks like we are being more proactive and more active even with the pandemic, because there is no territorial barrier stopping anybody from meetings these days. As soon as this meeting ends, I have another meeting in France, and tomorrow I have another meeting in London. Thank God to thank God to technology. All this we're all unable to do. Now we cross borders even without announcing. We go to Russia to hold meetings and we come back all under 20 minutes. But nonetheless, our prayer still is that these two should pass away, and may the blessings and protection of the Lord be upon all our shareholders and upon all our directors. Amen. And even as we are waging through the battle of COVID, our prayer is that VFD Group PLC, our company, should continue to move from strength to strength, and should make progress on all fronts, so that this time next year, we're not only having a physical meeting, but we're even celebrating better profitability and higher dividends being declared by the grace of God. So that said, I'll invite Ms. Obianujuaba to give us the closing prayer.
Hello, everyone. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Father, we thank you for this meeting today. We thank you for the success of this meeting, and we thank you that everything went accordingly. As we all head on to our various duties, we ask that you go with us, direct.
Hello?
Hello?
We lost you for a while. Have you concluded the prayer?
Oh, wow.
Nothing replaces a physical meeting.
Amen.
But we all say amen to that beautiful prayer. And
Amen.
I hereby declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, for your attendance and for your fruitful contribution to this AGM. We look forward to seeing you again.
Amen.
Soon. Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Chairman. Thank you, everybody.
Chairman,
Congratulations, everybody.
Chairman, when I was re-elected, my line was I was cut off.
Oh, are you serious? No.
Yeah.
Is that
so? I seize this opportunity to say thank you to everybody.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Doctor, congratulations.
I can't hear you.
Can we have the national anthem, please?
I understood about 90% of the process. the last 10% was difficult for me.
We just had the national anthem. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Have a great time, everybody.
Right.
Have a great time too, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely weekend.